Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just looking at the law, we're going to build the entire legal framework for penalties right from the ground up. I mean, piece by piece, just like architects putting together a massive, fascinating skyscraper of justice.
So here's the blueprint for what we're tackling today. We're going to start with the absolute golden rule, the foundation stone of everything. Then we'll open up the punishment toolbox, take a close look at every single tool, and get into the nitty-gritty math that judges have to use. After that, we'll cover some special rules of the game, and finally, check out what happens beyond the prison cell.
All right, let's just dive right in. Every complex system, whether it's physics or computer code, it always starts with one simple, really powerful idea. And for the whole concept of legal punishment, this is it. This is the bedrock. Everything else we're going to talk about is built on top of this.
And we're starting with the original Latin for a reason. This isn't just some old, dusty saying. Think of it as the source code for the entire system of punishment. This phrase, it's the non-negotiable starting point. It's like the prime directive that unlocks the logic of everything else.
So what does it mean? No crime, no penalty without a law. It's basically a contract between you and the state. The state has to publish a rule book, right? And you can only get in trouble for breaking a rule that was already in that book before you did anything. It's the ultimate you can't change the rules in the middle of the game principle. Super, super important.
And listen, this isn't just some nice philosophical idea. It's actually hard-coded right into the Constitution as a protection. They call it the ban on ex post facto laws. An ex post facto law is one that tries to reach back in time to punish you for something that was totally legal when you did it. This principle says, nope, you can't do that. It stops the state from just waking up and deciding that what you did last week is suddenly illegal. It's a firewall, really, against arbitrary power. So the system has this built-in fairness that kind of operates on two settings. The default setting is prospectivity. That means the law only looks forward. Think of it like a new stop sign. It only applies to cars that drive up after it's been installed. But then there's this really interesting exception called retroactivity. A new law can look backward. But, and this is the key, only if it helps the accused. So if a new law comes out that lowers the penalty for something, you can actually get the benefit of that new, lighter law, even if you were convicted under the old, harsher one. The rules can't change against you, but they can change in your favor. Pretty cool, right?
But, this leniency isn't a total free pass. It's more of a privilege than a right, and there are a couple of catches. First, if the offender is what's called a habitual criminal, basically someone who makes a career out of crime, the system says, sorry, you don't get the benefit of this new lighter rule. And second, if the new law itself specifically says it only applies going forward, well, then that's that. The generosity definitely has its limits.
All right, let's move on. Now we're going to see how the rulebook actually organizes all these consequences. And it's not just a random shopping list of punishments, not at all. It's more like a carefully organized toolbox with very specific tools designed for very specific jobs.
Okay, so before we get into what the penalties are, we really need to understand why they even exist. This is the whole philosophy behind it all. Preventative is about, building a firewall to protect society. Reformation is about trying to correct the offender's behavior. Exemplary, that's about making an example of someone to warn others. Self-defense is the state basically protecting its own right to exist. And justice, that's about hitting the reset button and making things right for the victim.
The system groups these tools based on how they're used, and it makes a lot of sense when you break it down. You've got the principal penalty. That's the main event, the big one, the judge hands down. Then automatically bundled with that is the accessory penalty. Think of it like the automatic add-ons, like maybe losing your right to vote. And then, if for some reason the main penalty can't happen, say you can't pay a fine, a subsidiary penalty kicks in as a backup plan, which could mean jail time.
Now, another huge distinction in this toolbox is whether a penalty is flexible or if it's fixed. So you have divisible penalties. These are like a measuring tape. They have a range, say 6 to 12 years, and that range can be split into minimum, medium, and maximum periods. On the other hand, you have indivisible penalties. These are like a solid block of concrete. It's a single whole punishment. You get the whole thing, no ifs, ands, or buts. And trust me, this difference is going to be super important when we talk about sentencing.
And as you can see here, penalties are not all created equal, not even close. They're scaled very precisely based on how severe they are. At the bottom of the ladder, you've got your light penalties, kind of like a slap on the wrist. In the middle, you have correctional penalties, which are really designed to correct someone's behavior. And then, way up at the top, you have the afflictive penalties. These are the big ones, the most serious punishments that involve serious suffering, like long-term imprisonment. It's a whole ladder of consequences.
Okay, so we've got our toolbox all organized. Now it's time to open it up and really inspect the tools. We're going to look at everything, from the smallest little screwdriver to the heaviest sledgehammer, so we can understand exactly what each one does, how long it lasts, and what the side effects are.
All right, let's clear something up that trips a lot of people up. You hear reclusion perpetua and life imprisonment thrown around like they're the same thing. They are not. In the legal rulebook, these are two totally different tools with different designs, different uses, and different consequences. You absolutely cannot swap one for the other.
The biggest difference is where they come from. Reclusion perpetua is a specific, brand-name penalty right out of the Revised Penal Code's toolkit. It has a very specific duration, 20 years and 1 day up to 40 years, and it comes with that pre-packaged bundle of accessory penalties we talked about. Life imprisonment, on the other hand, is more of a generic term you see in other special laws. It often has no set duration, and it doesn't automatically come with all those extras. So one is a very specific product, and the other is more of a general category.
So here we can see the specs for the real heavy-duty tools, the afflictive penalties. And what's really interesting is the direct link here. The longer the prison sentence, the harsher the automatic side penalties are. For instance, reclusion perpetua comes with lifelong civil interdiction, but prisión mayor only comes with a temporary disqualification. The system is designed to scale the side effects to perfectly match the main punishment.
And as we move down that ladder to the correctional and light penalties, you see the exact same logic. The prison sentences get a whole lot shorter, right? We're talking years down to months, or even just days. And the accessory consequences, they get scaled way back too. Instead of a total disqualification, it's more of a temporary suspension of certain rights, like holding office or voting, and usually just for the time you're serving the sentence.
Let's zoom in for a second on one of the most powerful accessory penalties, civil interdiction. This one is, well, it's profound. It's not just about locking you in a cell. It actually, temporarily, severs your fundamental civil rights and even your relationships. It's like the legal system puts your entire life, public and private, into a deep freeze. You can't be a parent, you can't manage your own property. It really shows you that the consequences of a serious crime ripple out way, way beyond the prison walls.
Okay, now we're getting to what might be the most complex, but honestly the most fascinating part of all of this, the exact math a judge has to follow. Sentencing isn't just a judge picking a number out of thin air based on how they feel that day. No way. It's a strict, rule-based calculation, and we are about to unpack that entire formula. And understanding this next part is the absolute key to unlocking how sentencing works. So think of all the penalties as a ladder. A degree is one whole rung on that ladder, like prison major. Big things, like whether you only attempted a crime or were just an accomplice, will move you up or down one or more full rungs, or degrees. A period, though, that's a specific spot on one of those rungs, the minimum, medium, or maximum part. The smaller factors, like mitigating or aggravating circumstances, are what move you between those periods. So the process is, find the right rung, then find the exact right spot on that rung. This table right here, this is the judge's core calculator for finding the right degree. They always start with the penalty for the crime if it had been fully completed by the main person responsible. That's the baseline. Then they use this grid. Was the crime only frustrated? Boom, you go down 1 degree. Were you just an accomplice? Down another degree. What if you were an accessory to an attempted crime? The penalty drops a massive 4 degrees down that ladder. It's a super precise system of discounts based on exactly what you did and how far it went.
The thing to really get here is that this is not a free-for-all where the judge just picks a number. It's a strict 3-step process. Step 1, find the prescribed penalty in the law book. That's the sticker price. Step 2, use that graduation table we just saw to find the correct degree. That's your discounted price based on your role. And finally, step 3, fine-tune it. You choose the period, minimum, medium, or maximum based on all the little details of the case. It's like a logical funnel, starting broad and getting very, very specific.
And this table shows exactly how that final fine-tuning in step 3 works. It's all if-then logic. If there are no mitigating or aggravating circumstances at all, the penalty defaults right to the medium period. If there's just one mitigating factor that lessens the guilt, the judge has to impose the minimum period. One aggravating factor, they go to the maximum. If you have both, they basically cancel each other out. It's a very clear-cut process that leads the judge right to the final, precise sentence.
Okay, let's keep going and look at some of the special rules of the game. These are the ones that can really change a sentence in a big way. You can think of them as advanced principles, maybe even power-ups and safety valves that are built right into the system, including the absolute maximum time anyone can ever spend in prison.
This is such a fascinating rule. It's called the threefold rule. So imagine someone gets convicted of a bunch of different crimes, and if you add it all up, the sentences come out to, say, 100 years. This rule acts like a data cap on your cell phone plan. It says the total time you serve can't be more than 3 times the length of your single worst penalty. So if your most severe crime got you 20 years, the absolute max you can serve is 60 years, no matter what. It's a way to stop sentences from becoming ridiculously long and, frankly, pointless.
And that data cap we just talked about, it has an absolute, unbreakable ceiling. 40 years. That number is the hard limit on how long anyone can be in prison. And that's a pretty profound statement from the legal system. It's basically acknowledging that after a certain point, more prison time just doesn't make sense. It's this practical, philosophical line in the sand, based on the human lifespan and the goals of punishment. It's not just a number, it's the point where the system says, okay, that's enough.
Now this next one, the indeterminate sentence law, or IS law, is a huge deal. It basically injects hope and incentive right into the system. Instead of giving you one fixed number for your sentence, a judge gives you a range, a minimum and a maximum. It's kind of like setting a performance goal. Once you serve the minimum, you become eligible for parole. If you've shown good behavior, if you've been rehabilitated, you can get out. It changes a sentence from being a fixed point to a variable range, and it gives the offenders some real control over their own future.
But this powerful tool isn't for everyone. It's a privilege, not a right, and it's specifically denied to certain people. If you're convicted of one of the most serious crimes against the country, like treason or rebellion, you're out. If you're a habitual delinquent, or if you've escaped from prison before, you're also excluded. The system basically reserves this chance for an earlier release for the people it thinks might actually deserve it.
Here's a really important technical point. A law came along that prohibited the imposition of the death penalty. But, and this is key, it didn't actually remove the death penalty from the law books. The best way to think about it is that the penalty is in a state of hibernation. It's still there, legally. It's still at the very top of that penalty ladder when judges are doing their calculations. But the final step, actually carrying it out, that's currently forbidden.
Okay, finally, let's explore the parts of the rulebook that deal with consequences that don't involve a prison cell. Because justice isn't just about locking people up, right? It's also about things like financial payments, community solutions, and making sure time already served actually counts for something.
So what happens when an offender has to pay for a bunch of stuff, damages to the victim, fines, court costs, but they don't have enough money to cover everything? Well, the law is very clear about the order of priority. It's a victim-first approach. The first bit of money goes to repair the direct damage, the next bit covers any other related damages, and only after the victim has been taken care of as much as possible does the offender then pay their fine to the state, and last of all, the court costs. This next rule is just about basic fairness. It's called preventative imprisonment. So let's say you get arrested, you can't afford bail, and you end up spending a whole year in jail just waiting for your trial. Then you're convicted and sentenced to 3 years. Well, that year you already spent isn't just lost time. It counts. It's basically seen as a down payment on your sentence, and you get full credit for it. It makes sure you don't end up serving more time than you were actually sentenced to.
And finally, these two options really show the system can be flexible. It recognizes that for some minor offenses, or for people who are just poor, locking them up isn't always the best answer. Community service, for example, lets a person serve their sentence through work that helps the community. And release on recognizance, that gets rid of the money barrier of bail. Instead, a court can release someone into the custody of a responsible person from their community who promises they'll show up for court. It's all about finding smarter, and sometimes more humane, solutions.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? We've just assembled this entire, incredibly complex rulebook. It's a system that's designed with almost mathematical precision to be consistent and fair, with rules for just about every situation you can imagine. But does this intricate machine always deliver what we would truly call justice? Well, that's a debate that is very much alive. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.